Hi painters! We've got lots of painting to do today, so let's get right to it. We're continuing today to paint on our beautiful fruit platter. We ended up halfway finished with the grapes last time, so this time we're going to continue and hopefully finish the grapes. I've gone back into my green grapes now and used my small round blender. I've stippled and dry rubbed with my yellow oxide, and so that I've blended that yellow, the lighter yellow, and the very dark green together. Now I want to go back and add a little bit more of the reflected light. I want to make sure that that's there right where I need it. So I'm back to my very small, maybe a number 2 or number 4 oval blender, and I want to go back into my number 1 green mix, just on the tip of my oval blender. I'm going to slide this kind of a bright green color right along that back edge of the grapes. Yeah, it's probably going to look a little funny right now, but like I keep saying, we've got lots of steps still to do. This green should blend in a little bit with that darker green that's on there. And I'm just picking up a little tiny bit, scooping up onto that edge of my small brush so that I can put it out there on the edge of the grapes. Okay, so once that's finished, now we want to think about adding, we'll go back to the dark again. So back to our small round blender. I want to do a little dry brushing. I'm back into my green mix number 4, and now instead of patting, I'm going to just do some dry rubbing. So I'm placing that curve of dark and blending it in just a little bit again. Lots of steps, lots of little fiddling around on grapes. You have to just tweak them here and tweak them there, and in just a little while they start suddenly looking like grapes. But you've got to get those layers on before that starts to happen. You just have to be careful now that you don't have too much paint on your brush. You should be able to rub this fairly firmly without creating a blotchy look of dark green. Alright, when I have that in place, now I'm going to take my yellow oxide, mix it with some warm white. It's still going to be more yellow than it is white, but it's going to be a little bit lighter. And I'm going to stipple and dry rub a little bit with this lightened yellow oxide. This is not going to be quite as big as the other stippling I did. We're going to go a little bit smaller than we did with the other yellow oxide stipple. Again, on grapes especially, I never try to do a whole bunch of, I never try to make a huge effect all at one time. I add a little bit at a time. And once you get the hang of this, it doesn't take too long. I mean, it's not really forever and ever. You just get a little color on, go back and add some other color, get a little more color on, and it isn't as long as what it seems when you're first learning it. But I want to create this lighter value now, yellow oxide and warm white, and maybe I'll go back and do it again. I'm not going to take the time to paint every one of these grapes, but I'll paint as many so that the first ones can dry and I can come back onto them. Now next time I'm going to add just a little more white to my mix so that my stippled area is a little bit brighter. Now I need to tint again. I want to use my magic mix, some naphthol red light, and possibly some brown earth. We'll start with the red. And just kind of brush this on here and there. There's no particular place that you want to put it. Of course, the dark area is the safest place, but it doesn't all have to go in the dark area. I'll pick up a little bit of brown earth. This is Magic Mix with my tint colors, my naphthol red light and my brown earth. Okay, now I want to get just a little bit more of the bright yellow on. So I'm going to go to my yellow light now, and this is on my small oval. I'm going to turn this so that I can push that yellow right out to the edge. I want to create a light yellow edge that faces the light. So I'm going to push the edge of my brush all the way out to that very far edge on the grape, scooping up that little tiny bit of yellow light on the tip of my brush. I still have a little bit of Magic Mix in the brush. And then I'm just dry brushing towards the center. To make these grapes look transparent, we have to have light around the outer edge. And to make them look round, we have to have dark in a curve around the back side of each grape. So you kind of have to keep going back and forth between your light and your dark, making sure that your dark stays in a nice rounded curve and your light for the transparent edge of the grapes stays on the outside edge. Of course, then you've got the shine, which is the lighter, brighter color in the center of the grape. So I'm doing, this is my yellow light. Now the reflected light around the back edge is not quite as yellow as on the light edge. So I'm going to go back to my green mix number 1. And again, I'm going to put this back in place. If your green mix number 1 is a little bit too green, add some yellow light to it. If it's too bright, add a little bit of yellow light to that and push that out all the way out to the edge and blend it. If it gets blended too much, if it doesn't look right, don't worry. We can come back and just do a little dry rub to blend it in. This is what I wanted to be able to show you, is how you have to just do a little bit, then do a little bit of something else, come back and do a little bit more. But this little group right here is starting to look the way I want it to look. I've done light, so I'm going to go back to my dark again. This time, for my dark, I want to add a color that's not just green. So I'm going to use my green mix number 4, but I'm going to put some brown earth with it. And now I'm going to stipple and dry rub, and I'm not going to put this on every grape, but in some of the very darkest areas, I want to create that brownish green color. And you can adjust it on your palette. You can have, one time you can have a little bit more brown on your brush, the next time you might have a little bit more green on your brush. We've got to maintain these green areas, or excuse me, these dark areas on the grapes in order to make them look round. Now when those are dry, I want to go back to my magic mix and my yellow light, and I want to kind of just glaze each one of those lightly, lightly, glaze the whole thing with magic mix and yellow light. This will help to smooth things out, plus it gives them a bright look. I'm working against the clock here, so trying to get this done. Once that's dry, go back to your little round blender, and we're going to go to white plus yellow light again, stippling. So our glaze is dry, and now I'm going to stipple mostly in that very fattest part of the grape that catches the light. This is not the highlight. This is still just trying to create a round, kind of a translucent look. So we don't really want to think of this as the highlight. I'm going to, one more time, when this is dry, I'm going to glaze it with yellow one more time, just to give it the most dimension that I can. So we'll let that dry, and hopefully I can do this without, it's not quite dry. Glaze it with the yellow one more time, and just because you see me doing this maybe 2 or 3 times doesn't mean you can't do it more times. You've got more time, and you can use your hair dryer and let things dry. You can stipple and glaze and stipple and glaze and dry rub as many times as it takes. But these are getting a nice color now. Make sure you glaze your yellow over your dark green and your reds, all of your tints in there, because the yellow will make them look that much richer. And I think we're about ready to do highlights, so I'm going to go into my warm white. And just now, every time I've gone back in here with light, and especially when I've made my mix lighter, my little stippling gets smaller and smaller. Every time we go up in value or down in value, we go a little bit smaller or a little bit less. Now I want to do my final highlight, and I'm going to do that with the tip of my little round blender, because I don't want it to be a dot. I want it to be more of a smudge. And it's going to be the straight warm white on the tip of my small round blender, and that's just going to be a little shine, just a very small. One of the things I want to point out to you about looking at videos and looking at photographs, the camera will automatically take that lightest value and really zero in on it and enhance it. So you have to remember that the actual painting is not as bright as what you see in the camera or in your photograph. So you don't want it to be super bright, especially in this part of the painting where the real central part of the painting is over here. We don't want to call too much attention over here to this darkened side of the painting. And that's all we've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next time, peaches. Yum.